Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have, continuing on with the SCP sagas, SCP-3894. So, SCP-3894 is... Probably should have done this one last time. Since it's since last episode we did 3895, but it was included in SCP-3895 as a link, so that's why we're doing it now. And SCP-3895 was done as a link in from the Joey Fucknut Saga stuff, so that's why we're doing that one the way we did. So confused yet? I know I am.
We're reading these in order that you would potentially read them when you're going through these stories, so
yes,
that's fine.
Yeah, we're reading them as the rabbit hole intended.
Mm-hmm.
We are Alice walking through Wonderland. 3894. It's another one by CadaverCommander, kind of continuing their story, their narrative of this apocalyptic event that's happening in the SCP world. So SCP-3894, getting down to the rundown and specifics, is an entity/program within the Foundation to utilize a being called the Sorrow and various other thaumaturgical techniques to convert regular task force agents into supernaturally enhanced agents. And the Sorrow, basically, we come to learn, is the entity that is the power behind that anchor from SCP. I can't remember which one it was. Shit.
From SCP making the character select screen from an MMO.
Yeah, well, that one, but also like the Admiralty anchor SCP.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one that specifically when you touch the anchor, you get crushed by gravity, or you have weird water things, or if you do it a certain way, you gain power from thing beyond. And the Sorrow apparently is the thing beyond. This is the whole reason why they're initializing this sort of program to make supernaturally enhanced agents using this SCP entity is for the purpose of combating SCP-3895, which we covered last time, the mother creature that has recently devoured the island nation of Guam, and her spawning entities, which we have also covered in recent memory. We also see some confirmation of connections between Hull and Hank and the anchor, like I just said. Both the SCP object and the reason for its symbolism at the top of this article and SCP-3895. And that's about it. That's the gist of it. This is just kind of going into some details about the SCP entity, the Sorrow, and the Foundation's program to create better agents to combat enemy forces. So, I guess we will move on to everyone tell us the grammar inquisitions. At this point, I do not have any. Do you guys have any?
I have a conjunction junction.
Ooh. And next stop, conjunction junction. Doot, doot.
It's also likely that you think you're experienced enough. It's also completely worthless. And as much as you beg, you will never, ever die. It will occasionally, and without warning, appear near the rear wall of Site 001-Alpha's primary equipment chamber, where it rarely moves and to date has only spoken when spoken to. And it cared for them. It was primitive, but a bond was formed. And as expected, that bond ended in death. It was Sorrow that solidified life's ability to see itself, to look inward for the first time, to observe and understand something that was beyond eating or mating or fighting. It was sorrow that taught life to remember things that had stopped existing. Its heart. It is the weight that pulls us down and prevents life from destroying in wrath or hedonism or terror. It is in sorrow that we will find our salvation and be reminded of what truly makes us human. Finn.
Wow. You like completely bypassed all of the like program stuff and just kind of went like it told the narrative of the sorrow essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It was oddly not really out of context.
Yeah. And I also noticed like most of it comes from like the not the dialogue specifically, but like basically the writings of the officials in this one, like not like the ones that like the quoted document writings, like from first from the guy who's like the head of the what is it, Sigma team commander Chuck Holloway in that intro bit, and then the next one is from Kumail Khan, the Operation Marduk thaumaturgical deputy head, like his little blurb on all the matter. It's interesting.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
For those not in the know, Mikey does these short little mini stories basically by grabbing all the sentences that start with words they probably shouldn't start with, like its, ands, buts, so's, and so forth. 'Cause there's always better words to use than those.
Yeah, and you shouldn't use them, even if you do use like one or two, like you shouldn't do them like all the time, like some people do.
Mm-hmm.
But this one actually was like surprisingly coherent as a result.
Yes.
But yeah, and that's it for your grammar inquisition there, Mikey?
Yep.
All right. Gamer, do you have anything?
I just got one that's like a little bit of a run-on.
Sure.
The majority of this energy is encoded with markers that coincide with EOI-090, comma, a number known header-level SCPs, comma, anti-atomic exponents of significant value, comma, and several codons corresponding to Earth and all extant forms of life with humanity as a focal point, comma, and association magnitude of 9.8, period.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit of a run on. Especially going into like some techno jargon.
Mm-hmm. And the way I corrected that is...
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, no, you go. Go. I'll go after.
Okay. The way I corrected it is the majority of this energy is encoded with markers that coincide with EOI-090, a number of known header-level SCPs and anti-atomic exponents of significant value, period. These markers also exist within several codons corresponding with blah, 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 blah. So basically right in the middle, chop it in half.
Yeah. Yeah, just to properly like kind of give us a break from all that techno jargon.
Yes.
Actually, I guess I do have one. I don't think I wrote down, but it kind of makes sense here. So, I bring it up because you mentioned part of it. So EOI, or
I have that as a note. That's
well,
fine.
I feel like it would be grammar inquisition because I'll get to it. So entity, it mentions in the special containment procedure, what's the quote here? To no longer be effective in tactically suppressing entity of interest 090 or 090 or the mother. And then the description, it goes in as like SCP-3894 is a collective designation given to EOI 89 or 089, the Sorrow, and then GOI 089, the bearers, and the diplomatic, thaumaturgic, and martial alliance between blah 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 blah. So yeah, EOI is, I believe, supposed to be a designation, or basically an acronym, or like a simplification of entity of interest designation. And I did not. It took me a moment to realize that GOI, based on the context of what we get of what GOI is, like the bearers, is probably group of interest. However,
Oh,
it
I was
at no
assuming
point
guys of
shows.
interest.
Really, really.
I don't know.
I'm surprised
I
you
didn't
didn't say
assume
gamer
anything,
of
to be
interest.
Yeah. Games of interest? Oh,
Well, I
there's
was just
Warframe, there's MechWarrior 5, that's cool.
so, but like in the context of this document, like I was trying to come up with something, and the best I could come up with was group of interest. But unfortunately, they don't reference it first at all. They just kind of dive into they just kind of dive into GOI or an EOI.
Unfortunately, I would have to say group won't work, because isn't the Sorrow called a GOI, and it's a singular thing?
No, the Sorrow is called an EOI.
Oh, it is an EOI?
Yeah.
Okay, then
Yeah,
possibly.
it does. SCP-3894 is the collective designation group or designation given to EOI 089, and then in quotes the Sorrow, and then in comma GOI 089 in quotes the bearers.
Mhm. I still
uh,
think it's guys of interest.
Okay, well, you're wrong. You're wrong, and I hate you.
I am, but that's my
Insert.
headcanon, just 'cause it's stupid.
Fair. But yeah, I guess that's my grammar position. Is like I kind of wish they'd mentioned like the full version of that
Mhm.
of that other acronym. But I digress. I guess on to actual thoughts. If we're all done with grammar inquisition.
Yes.
Okay.
I only had the one.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go into a huge. I'm not going to repeat the whole quote because that would be too long. But basically, just concerning the opening paragraph and links. I do like these warning documentations. I know that Gamer, I think last episode. Why do I keep saying last session? Because we've been playing too much like Shadowrun and stuff.
It is a recording session.
That's true. Yeah. Last episode, I think you had some beef about like these kind of in media res, out of context, sort of like opening bits.
I thought I said I liked it.
I thought you didn't like them.
It was 2 weeks ago.
I know
it was.
Yeah. No, no, don't lift the veil.
Oh, sorry.
I'll double check. Future me check. Okay, yeah. So looking over the tapes from last week, in quotes. Yeah, Gamer did not like the intro bits. He thought it was confusing as hell because he doesn't know any of the shit going in, and he just wants to get into the entry. However, he did comment at the end, since we speculated that the entry itself might have been an SCP and a memetic virus, that next time he would love it. So, I guess the memetic virus is working. Thanks. But getting to what I think, I do like these warning documentations which precede the entry. Sort of an extra layer of immersive bureaucracy of the SCP Foundation. Like, all right, if you sure you want to click on this button, or you sure want to, you sure you want to proceed? It's irreversible. Some of the effects are irreversible.
Yeah.
And then you go and click like I wish to, or I accept the burden, and it even changes the link. So. And that's another thing I like about it is like the link alters, like the message of the link alters by clicking it to respond accordingly. Like it starts with I accept the burden, and then it immediately changes once you click it. Bear the weight proudly. Your sacrifice is not in vain. It's like, oh god, like adds a little bit more depth and weight to the matter. Also, the immediate message after clicking that, which reads, "Greetings, soldier. Allow me to formally congratulate you on making the worst, greatest, and last decision of your life." After it asked you to, if you'd like to proceed, is just kind of funny in a morbid way for me. It's like, "Welcome to the shitstorm, asshole."
Yeah, pretty much.
You asked for this. And continuing on with that kind of a little bit. The pep talk parts of this blurb were really reminding me kind of like of Men in Black and like their intro to like newbie agents. It's like how they treat like Will Smith's character in that, like as when he starts off. It's like it's like everything you know means exactly dick. And which makes sense because given the Foundation's roots in government jargon, they kind of want to basically beat you down so they can bring you back up, or they can lift you back up as a proper agent. Like, shred away all the illusions you think you know. This is how the world really works, and we're going to make you better for it. Terribly better for it. And then at the end, like near the end, I was kind of getting Doom Eternal vibes off the dialogue. Like Sigma-01 members are meant to be the Doomslayer in a way.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which, not gonna lie, feels pretty rad as an idea. But yeah, I digress here. On to my next thing, my next comment. So as a result of these events, Operation Marduk was initiated, and Procedure 3894 Persephone was devised to supplement the Foundation's available tactical resources. You know, this really does feel like it should be it shouldn't be a regular SCP entry. I don't mean that in a bad way. And again, we kind of had this last episode when I was kind of on the fence about like the narrative kind of blending with an SCP entry. Like with SCP-3895, we kind of got it where like we were getting a story of this like apocalyptic level, or this like kind of leading up to an apocalyptic level in an SCP entry. And again, like the entire nation of Guam no longer exists according to the declassified info we got from SCP-3895.
It exists. It's just a giant fleshy thing now.
Yeah, it's just a giant flesh.
It's the entity of Guam now.
Yes. Oh God. It's entity of interest, Guam. Or would it be group of interest, Guam? Because like, they are all one, but they are many as well.
Entity group of interest.
So IG or and EG OF or no.
Yes.
Wow. EGOI.
There you go.
Oh. Yes, Mikey.
Or Legion of Interest.
Oh yes. Legion of Interest. The LOE. No, LOI. God damn it.
Legion of Interest. The LOZ. What?
Yes. I mean, it makes about as much sense as like trying to decipher like the GOI and EOI.
Yeah.
What's the LZ?
Although they do a Legion of Interest and they accidentally capitalize the interest, it would be an LOL. At least it would look like it.
Yeah, they forget. Yeah, exactly. God damn it. So continuing on though. About my thoughts here. We covered SCP-385 or 3895 and this one now, and between the usual entry format and like the narrative within it, this one is even more of a story being told, and it feels like the greater like meta plot story is overriding the format of what is usually an SCP entry here. I don't think this shouldn't exist. I want to just clarify that I do like what I read. I just think that this should be classified as an SCP story or tale, and likewise combine it with the elements from SCP-3895. Like, I love reading these stories, like the SCP tales and stuff like that, and I love reading SCP entries. It just seems kind of weird to have it mixed so the way it is. And have it in the catalog of SCP entries, because suddenly you're kind of diving into, like, you're reading a couple of SCP entries, like their format, like the safety protocols, like getting kind of ideas for your own stories to write for SCPs, and then you like get into this one, and they basically already given you a story to write. Like it feels like it needs its own separate like designation or something to me. Did any of you guys get that or feel that?
Yes. My note on that is that this SCP should have focused more on the Special Task Force Sigma.
I was almost thinking that it should have focused on like I think. Yeah, continue. Yeah.
And then a lot of the stuff that's in this is actually what they're doing to contain and protect SCP-895. So shouldn't a lot of this be in that entry?
Yeah.
Yeah, like my take on this is like I feel like this should have focused more on like giving us more information regarding the Sorrow, like the entity itself
Yeah.
that is the power behind the and like make that program, like make that the protocol for like creating the better agents to fight SCP-3895 and like that whole like kind of that whole like meta plot. Honestly, I feel like should be cut out of these these entries. Have these entries focus on the subjects that they are supposed to be on, and then have this be just a tale that's that has like a link in the entry maybe to like an SCP tale. And apparently this is something that I discovered while I was looking through like the comments of this one because I was really curious at what other people thought about it. Apparently there is a very divisive opinion on this the series of SCP entries by CadaverCommander. Some people think it should stay or should be separated into like tales and versus like entries. Like we should have like a story section and then have this as an entry, like an actual like formatted entry as is with the SCP Foundation. But others think that it should be it should remain because this is kind of how Series 3 SCP entries are like, which is what this is under the Series 3 SCP entries. So apparently a lot of them tend to have some meta plot like linking a couple of SCP entries together.
So basically, like the SCP purists from long ago,
Yeah,
they want it so they're not so connected directly, and then but all the modern guys is like it's whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like, oh, it's just like I can like I see both ways. Although I probably lean closer to the purist if I had to choose, just because like it's a bit of a like you got to read a lot of different things, and that's some of the fun of SCP entries. But like as a new reader into the SCP entry, if I just chose like 3895 or 3894, I'd be like, I gotta read what how much? Wait, what am I missing here? And I mean, again, that's part of the allure of reading online fiction is like sometimes like having to go down that rabbit hole. But from a traditional standpoint, it can be kind of daunting or a bit of a slog sometimes.
You know what it's like?
Oh,
it's like trying to look up something in the Shadowrun book. You look up
all
something,
roads lead to
and then
Shadowrun.
it's like, okay, this spell does fire damage. Go to this page to learn about fire damage. Okay, fire damage is this, and that. Although it's damage is based on force. Go to this page to see how force affects spells. Okay, like same
book,
sort of thing.
That's not in the core book. That's in Street Magic.
Yeah,
go to Street Magic on page blah blah blah, and then you want to know? Like by the way, like this part, you actually have to go into the insect spirit section of this book, which is not actually part of the core books. It's actually a supplementary material. It's like, God damn it.
Yeah.
We've run into that as Shadowrun players and as a GM for it. We've all run into that with Shadowrun 4th edition, which is what the Shadowrun we play. Where I have oh yeah, no, we all love Shadowrun, but their formatting is shit.
Yeah.
That's our thing. It's like, yeah, we like Shadowrun, but the way they lay out their books, complete garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if 5th edition or 6th edition made it any better or more streamlined, but goddamn.
Oh, it works.
Yeah. Based on the reviews I got from that I've heard from Shadowrun 6th edition, it's probably worse.
Great. Anyways, that's not the story.
Yes. Yeah, this isn't Shadowrun Contain Protect. This is Secure Contain Protect.
Nice. Shadowrun credits profit.
Yes. Anyway, so moving on to my next thing here. Oh god, I just realized this is okay. Yeah. Anyways, so Procedure 3894 Persephone describes a process through which willing and able Foundation Task Force personnel undergo complete metaphysical transformation through a series of interactions between SCP-3898. the influence of SCP-3894 Alpha, and a hyperthaumaturgic distortion field generated by a battery of 16 Morgenstern Con thaumaturgic rams. Upon completion of this process, the subject's body is destroyed, and the subject adopts the standard set of anomalous properties exhibited by GOI 089 while retaining spiritual autonomy and loyalty to the Foundation. These properties are as follows. Conversion of the body into a Type 5 permanent, autonomous, selectively corporeal, thaumaturgic, plasmic construct. Greatly increased physical strength and endurance. What's that type? What's that Roman number 4?
Yep.
Type 4, post-thanatotropic, substance variable, nexus conditional, immortality, hydrokinetic and gravikinetic capability, and then it keeps going. And as I'm reading as I read that whole blurb and was reading what this protocol is all about, I got this. So they are using the Admiral's Anchor 3893 to transform their regular mundane troops into a, pause for effect, supernatural task force. Damn it! They beat us to it. It's like it's even in the name of Sigma 01, if you think about it.
Why?
Well, let me just pull it up. Hang on. It's special
STF.
task force. They call it special task force, but it's not. Yeah, but it's it's one N away from being the SNTF.
Yeah.
Also, kitchen idea here. You could totally do this kind of thing in Shadowrun. I know we were just brought it up, just to bring up. I know the cultist is a bit obsessed with the Sixth World.
And Mikey's like,
Mikey's just Mikey's the only one who hasn't played Shadowrun with us.
Mm-hmm.
But you could definitely have the characters play agents like this, and have them all be free spirits, or have the first session be them as regular troops fighting something. They're the survivors of the first session that goes horribly wrong for the entire the rest of the crew. And then they are basically asked well, yeah, your entire squad was completely wiped out except for you guys. Do you want to get some proper vengeance on these supernatural assholes? And assuming you guys the players agree, that's when it's all right, next session between sessions, we're going to have your characters turned into free spirits, which is an optional character creation design for using the Runner's Companion from Shadowrun 4th edition. And maybe have the players. Yeah, you could either start them out. They could even just be started off as such, or have them have the first session be kind of their reason for wanting to get payback on the monsters.
Mm-hmm.
The idea kind of here with to kind of pull from the idea I had from the last week's episode with the Shadowrun campaign of fighting horrors and other outer dimensional beings from in Shadowrun using an organization like the Draco Foundation or the Brotherhood of Darkness. Similar kind of thing here. Basically, you're just a group of agents that are specialized from one of these foundations that have been turned into free spirits to fight the horrors that are outbreaking into the world. And yeah, that's kind of my idea here. Was my kitchen idea is wow, yeah, you could still do this in Shadowrun, guys.
Always.
Yeah. Again, not saying that CadaverCommander is this is just my own Shadowrun riddled mind kind of connecting dots and seeing some things in the material that CadaverCommander has shared with the internet. So it would be pretty baller though if we found out that CadaverCommander was a Shadowrun fan. Just saying.
You're not wrong.
And then my next one here The subject is then registered and inducted into Special Task Force Sigma-01. I almost said Supernatural Task Force.
01, yeah. That's
Yeah.
what they are.
Sigma-01, yeah. Foundation's anchors. To be selectively deployed alongside Group of Interest 089 to counteract all sorties initiated by Entity of Interest 090, including containing now global instances of SCP-3896, neutralization of all instances of worldwide T-Home class entity emergencies, and prevention of event Marduk-01. Decalion 1. Oh, sorry, no, Decalion, among others. So there's a lot there to kind of digest. So way back when we covered Hall and Hank, is when we first got our kind of interest into T-Home class entities, which are basically the giant kaiju monsters that he dredges up from coastlines. Good old Hall and Hank. For the Foundation to like deal with, because if he didn't, there'd be worse things coming out.
Yeah.
So we were actually kind of on the nose of like our idea for like a Power Rangers Sentai kind of series of like SCP Sentai series. With like Hall and Hank being Zordon and like or being a cross between Zordon and Reba Repulsa.
Rita Repulsa. Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, I just said Reba Repulsa. It's like a country singer version of Rita Repulsa.
And now we know how she acts now and sounds.
Oh,
Sings
God
the
damn
monsters
it.
of life.
Yeah. After 10,000 years, I'm free. It's time to conquer Earth. Oh, Jesus Christ. But yeah, cool to know that we're kind of get vibing, at least our idea, like kind of the core ideas that we were kind of, or the core feelings about this whole situation. We were kind of vibing the whole time. We just had to, read the rest of it. Also, I learned a word today. Sortie. A sortie.
Really?
From the French word meaning exit, or from Latin root surgere, meaning to rise up, is a deployment or dispatch of one military unit, be it an aircraft, ship, or troops, from a strong point. The term originated in siege warfare. Thanks, Wikipedia. Yeah, I didn't know what sortie, I was like, what the hell is sortie? Like, is that a typo? And I Googled it, I was like, oh, that makes sense, okay. Dispatchment, or a deployment of troops.
Dispatchment.
Goddamn, what the hell's that character? What's that character? Yeah, what's his character's name from
I don't know, it's
Dragon
from a
Age?
game I've never played.
Hang on. Sandal. His name is Sandal Fedek from Dragon Age.
Sandal.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm. But moving right along. So EOI 089, tentatively designated SCP-3894 Alpha, is a Category 4 thaumaturgic and hyperphysical. I don't know why I keep saying hyperphysical entity referred to by members of GOI 089 and STF Sigma 01 as the Sorrow, the bearer of the burden, and the withered king. Also, and this in my comments, also the Admiral in Yellow.
Yeah.
Also, why isn't this and this is kind of like a little bit more on my my notes what I mentioned earlier about like this SCP entry. Why isn't this description closer to the top of the SCP description? Like after the first mention of EOI 089. Like this is mentioned like right at near the end of the document, like after like all the other information's been put in. And right before we go into Kumail Khan's reference material. It also kind of begs, it's like I kind of wish this was all about this entry was more about the bearer of the burden, like the sorrow itself, rather than the organization, or like the not the organization, the protocol, and like the project that the SCP Foundation is working on, because like that's That's sort of like an after effect of this entity. It's not necessarily like, yeah, it just feels like, again, like this kind of going back into like the comment I had earlier where like I feel like the project that they're working on to like enhance agents should be a story that's like maybe linked in this entry about the Sorrow, but it shouldn't be like integrated into the information about the Sorrow necessarily. But that might just be my purist kind of perspective on this.
I think I figured out what that story should be called.
Oh.
Operation Marduk.
Yes, absolutely, because that's literally the reason why that this whole situation's done, is because Operation Marduk is the is the response to the breaches in reality that the one entity's having. So, yeah, no, I agree. And then regarding the last few paragraphs by Dr. Camille Khan, Operation Marduk Thaumaturgy Department head, so example 03 redacted as to why I think this should just be classified as a full story rather than an entry in the SCP catalog. This section, by the way, example 03 redacted was actually something I came up with for my comments. It's not the quote.
Okay.
It's not a quote or anything. I thought it'd be funny. I'm sorry.
Clearly they nailed it.
Yeah. Sorry. It's all good. So yeah, this section feels like the comment which actually Mikey also like got really well with his conjunction junction, like, because it's like the last bit of it is all just like basically that. This section, in some ways, as I read it, it seemed to be hinting at the origin of SCP-3894, the Sorrow. Like, he's been with us as a species from the earliest days of humanity. He bonded with us then, back then, and has been helping us on this little mud ball rotating in space and time, and aiding us against cosmic threats. Yes, my friends, I believe this SCP to be the oldest buddy horror in history.
Wow. To the entirety of our species.
Yes, exactly. Because he's like, man, these are some really chill creatures on this little mud ball. And it's like, I think I'm gonna hang out with them. Oh man, they're dying. Fuck. I'm gonna make sure this doesn't happen. It's like John Wick and his dog.
Pretty much.
Now I picture the Sorrow as an old, decrepit Keanu Reeves. God damn it.
But he still kicks ass.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's just kicking ass with that. He's just like, wait, it's like, I'm thinking maybe I'm back. As he just like pulls like the anchor from behind his back and just like slams it against an eldritch horror. All tactically even, like.
Yeah, of course.
Oh god, now I know what I'm drawing for this session or this episode.
Yeah, you got a title card, good to go.
Yep. But yeah, honestly, to me, this entry should be more about the. I keep saying it. This entry to me should be more about the Sorrow, and what info the Foundation has gathered on him, as much as and make the story separate. Like, yeah, I keep bringing it up, but as a casual fan of the SCP Foundation, it always seemed like the SCP Foundation is sort of a monster manual of weird and horrifying things and places. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's not fully accurate, as it has come to, like, as it is now reaching, like, I think the sixth. We're on. I think there's SCP 6000 now. Like, we're in that.
Wow, damn.
Yeah. We're definitely in like the 6000s now, like of a series.
We, for recording purposes, have ever left 3000 yet.
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten into like any of the more like recent stuff, but yeah, like, and again, like, as a casual like reader of SCP Foundation stuff, that's always been kind of my interpretation of the SCP Foundation, is that it's more of like kind of a monster manual or like a security protocols for all these weird and wacky and creepy, terrifying things and places and entities, but maybe as it's gone on, it has evolved past that, and or like there's been series of SCP entries that have decided to like branch off and be different in their narrative, and that's fine. That's kind of the nature of collaborative storytelling and collaborative writing projects like this. It's sort of the nature of the beast is to like to in order to not be static or stagnant and restricting. But if I were fresh into SCPs and this was my first article, I'd be pretty fucking lost. Or I'd be like, I might still like go down the rabbit hole and like start reading through links and stuff like that. But I could see people like just like reading this and it's like I'm so confused. I don't want to read anymore.
Yeah, what you might have to do is read until there's a link. Click on the link. Read that link. If you run into any links in that link, pause there. Go to that link. Read that link.
Yeah.
Until you can get back to the main story.
Yeah. Insert our comment about Shadowrun rules versus this type of SCP storytelling. And again, I don't want to say this seems like I'm like kind of being a downer on this, and that's not my intent. Like, it's just it's coming from my more kind of, I guess, traditional narrative sort of point of view of like my own. This is coming from my own like preconceptions of what the SCP entries and Foundation how they're presented. And this seems like really weird compared to like what we're used to reading in SCP entries, in terms of like a meta plot and like stuff. And like generally, like I've really enjoyed the meta plot stuff that we've gotten from CadaverCommander. I just wasn't expecting the story to be in more SCP entries. I was expecting it to be like in an actual like story on like the SCP Tales section of the website, not yeah. But yeah, I guess that's my mad ramblings of actual thoughts for this one. So I'm gonna hand it over to Mikey now. He stands for evil.
Okay. So this is the SCP that ties a lot of the SCPs together for the mother. And this is where I reiterate what I said earlier, where a lot of this would have been better under the mother entry because it's basically on how they're fighting it and what the mother is doing, because the mother is sending out its drones, which is the SCP-3897, and we talked about it last week that that's what the mother was probably sending out, but it didn't actually say in that entry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where, like, this is good in the fact that it ties all these SCPs together, but bad in the fact that there's information that's supposed to be in a different SCP entry.
Yeah. No, 100%. I agree with you. Like, it's like you said earlier, and again, this is I think what me and Mikey I guess are trying to get at is like we should have like maybe like all that information that we got from like the like maybe to make it simpler or like to make it more clear like for the tell the story, like perhaps like an Operation Marduk story in like the Tales SCP, like where it gathers up all of the meta plot information that we've gotten from all these other SCP entries and puts it into a nice cohesive package, might be a beneficial document to have on the in the Foundation. Like maybe even not necessarily get rid of the information from the SCP entries themselves, but like have at the bottom, like or somewhere in some of the links to that kind of comprehensive document.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then my note here is that this seems like it should be the first story you read and then following the links as you go, or this is more the penultimate story or SCP entry, and the final SCP entry you're supposed to read is SCP-3895, which we did last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely out of our.
Yeah, but again, that's kind
of it.
Yeah, 100%. And unfortunately, that's just like it's the nature of SCP rabbit holes, of because like we started from one end and then we ended up like diverging into different tunnels based off the links that are provided in SCP in the SCP entries.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Then do my note here. It's neat to learn about Special Task Force Sigma-01, since they were mentioned in the SCP-3895.
What?
oh,
That's what this whole story's about.
that's what this that's what the the story part of this, or what like the bulk of this entry, although it's supposed to be about the Sorrow, it's really about like how Sigma-01 is created.
Mhm. Yeah, and to realize that they're actually some super entity created out of people.
They're not
Yeah.
dumb.
What?
They're not dumb.
Did he say dumb?
They're yeah.
No?
You said
I
that
didn't say-
I think he said some.
Oh, I heard dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're basically like converting them into like Dr. Manhattans. To reference Watchmen. Like they're basically like stripping them of their physical forms and turning them into energy beings that can crush things with gravity and like use hydromancy and
Yeah.
and all kinds of other powers, because they're basically like being given like the weight of like the cold depths, which is what the Admiralty anchor like tends to do to people.
Yeah, they're sleeping
Yeah.
in the cold below now.
Sleeping in the cold below, sleeping in the cold below. Sorry.
Yeah. And then knowing about the Special Task Force Sigma-01, it adds more weight to SCP-3895 when you get into the fact that the Sigma team has been lost.
Yeah, that's what threw me off. I was like, so they 3894 is a bunch of supernaturally enhanced like beings. How did they get like holy shit, like the thaumaturgical fields around SCP-3895 must be so great that it's destroying energy based things too. Or that it's absorbing, maybe it's absorbing the free spirits that the Sigma-01 has become.
Yeah, when I read 9.5, it's saying like we're sending in Sigma 1. They're gonna fuck them up. I'm just thinking they're a bunch of mundane soldiers with guns, just shooting bullets and throwing grenades.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're not. They're wizards.
Yeah,
So it
basically
completely
it's the
changed.
wizard.
This
It's the wizard
entire-
task force.
Yeah, this entire entry kind of changed that whole fight in my head now.
Yeah. Yeah, you thought they were ODSTs. It
Yes.
turns out they were actually like they were like I don't even know, they wouldn't be, I don't think they'd necessarily be Spartans from Halo. But
Mhm.
but yeah, something they're the I'm trying to think of. Yeah, I don't know.
ODSTs are fair because they are just normal
Yeah.
dudes.
Yeah, the
Just
basic-
really
yeah,
good
yeah,
normal dudes.
Yeah, you thought you thought they were. It turns out they're actually just angels that have been recruited by the agency.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have. Other than my one note here, sort of saying the one thing that makes this almost make sense as an SCP is that it in the explanation of what the SCP is, it says that it is an alliance,
Yeah,
which is, a lot of SCPs aren't alliances between different groups trying to battle one thing. But again, that sort of muddies the water of what an SCP should be.
yeah. It really, and actually, I think somebody in the comments for this one even like mentioned like a I'm gonna actually pull it up, the discussion section here, because there was something that somebody commented about it. Yeah, here it is. They pulled this from the writing how to write an SCP. Act as if every SCP will be the first that someone will read. That means do not put too much in there that requires knowledge of anything else on the site.
Mm.
And that's like a fundamental like kind of guideline for writing an SCP. Now, again, there's room for like expansion and development of writing prompts and writing ideals and such. But like that person like posting that, it's like that really is kind of nailing some of the thing that we're kind of getting here, is that like all this stuff is like, this is an SCP entry that's tied to a story that we've been reading along with other SCP entries, but it almost kind of muddies the very concept of what this SCP entry was supposed to be about, which was the Sorrow, because it's almost like it's kind of a joint, like it's not so much about the Sorrow really in this entry. It's about the program that the Foundation is using to utilize the Sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that's interesting that it has become an SCP entity in itself. is the program that they set up. But again, like you said, it muddies the water a bit of the narrative and of the formatting for SCP entries, where this could just fit in a document in the Tales of SCP and it would be fine, because it's sort of its own little canon now, because the world in the, being told by these series of SCPs that we've been covering is kind of leading up to an apocalyptic event that they have not been able to properly deal with. Like they have to lift. They're gonna have to lift up the Veil protocols, and let humanity know that SCP Foundation exists and that there's big threats here.
Yeah. And then we find out that its one bane is salt water, so it's literally stuck on Guam.
That's why the cave and the bas relief of the creature in the cave, of the mother in the cave, it's just it's surrounded by crushing depths and stuff, and that's why that's actually a prison for it. The only thing that kind of puts a hamper in that is, I think, doesn't like the fly thing, the 3893. Or no, that's the anchor.
Doesn't matter.
The giant floaty flesh thing that are like we discover as part of its servitor dispatch. Doesn't it like drop like briny water occasionally and like refuse and stuff?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
There's a little bit of a monkey wrench into your idea there. But you had a good start. Like it was always leading together. But yeah, it's yeah, no, I agree. It is a bit muddying.
Mm-hmm. And back a little bit ago, because I haven't really had a chance to chime in.
Mm-hmm.
The weirdest part of this whole like alliance thing and it being an SCP is because there's two entities in this that don't even have their own SCP. Because there's Sorrow, which doesn't have its own SCP, and then Sigma 1 doesn't have its own SCP.
Yeah.
And then this SCP is the alliance of multiple SCPs, two of which don't have any.
Yeah.
So where's the data on those specifically? Like it's so weird.
That's what I was trying to get at earlier. Is like this entry should be either about the Sorrow or the burden, or the bearers of the burden. And again, yeah, I keep bringing it up. This should be separated. Gotta keep them separated.
I was gonna say that.
Why am I so musical today?
You're the bard. You're always musical.
Apparently, yeah. But yeah, no. I think we're all kind of like simpatico on our feelings right now on this.
I don't know. I don't like Bell. Their service isn't that good.
Ah, God.
You did.
Why Bell uses it is because it means basically like working in like being in tandem, being like in sync with somebody.
I get.
Yeah, of a person, likable and easy. Nope. Having or characterized by shared attributes or interests, compatible. So, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right, that's into my actual thoughts.
Okay. Gamer.
Okay. So there's all the reading at the start about like the commander saying how much of a fucking badass you're gonna be in your Sigma. Then at the end it drops that you're Sigma 1. And then the first thought I had was, wait, aren't these the guys that got fucking owned the last time? So it sounds like these are either words of praise, like these words of praise are either like godlike power is real, or this is just the commander blowing smoke up your ass to make you feel like a badass, even though you're just a dude.
Yeah, no, it's basically a pep talk, like a military pep talk. It's like,
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, because at that point I'm only at the pep talk.
Yeah.
The pep talk is either you have these actual powers for real, or you're just badass soldiers and you're gonna do it. Like, I don't know. It could be either way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, especially after like, because this is a link that we got from 3895, and they got decked, like decimated. So it's like sort of like, okay, well, this actually this either confuses you or puts a little bit more weight into like how devastating it was to lose them in the conflict, or both. As you find out like what they are, like what they turn into, because like, wait, I thought this thing only like was really like devastating to like biological matter. How is it destroying these like energy based life forms?
Reasons.
Well, it does say that SCP-3894 has a much more expansive thaumaturgical field around it, i.e., a giant energy magic field around it, or like it has a like spiritual presence that's beyond its flesh form that it's manifesting. So, yeah, it probably wiped them out with like a level 6 or like a rank 6 barrier.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
totally. But anyways, then it starts bringing up entity of interests and such. Is this the only time that's ever been used in any SCP story? Because this is the first time I've heard that sort of dialect.
Yeah, it's definitely the first one I've heard. Used, like that kind of jargon used.
Yeah, I wonder like if there's a list of jargon that is canon. Because I know a lot of this stuff is like canonical between a whole bunch of different things, you know. Like they call them entities and stuff like that.
Yeah, I wonder. Like again, I haven't like done a comprehensive look at like.
Yeah, same.
They got like under info page. Like I'm looking, just quickly doing like a quick search on their like looking along their stuff. They've got like background information for like all the object classes, personnel dossier, security clearance, stuff like that, and then information like a guide hub, user tools, tag search, like bunch of information on like how on guidelines and stuff like that. So, and even like seminars and workshop section. So, like, it basically, again, this is a huge collaborative writing group, and not everyone's going to use the same jargon, but like, or like everyone's going to write differently because they have their own writing styles, but they are all kind of keeping within the confines of the Foundation's format. They're just doing different jargon. Yeah.
Yeah. Then moving on ahead a little bit.
Also, sorry, I'll let you finish.
Will you?
I just saw like next to on the main bar on the side, SCP Library, Tales, Cannons, International SCP Hub, GOI formats.
Well then.
Just gonna quickly select that for a second. Just see what that's
Guys
about.
of interest. You were right.
Son of a bitch. This is a listing of all GOI format documents organized alphabetically by group of interest.
Ah.
So it is groups of interest.
Incorrect. Gonna have to change that page.
Yep. Yeah, SCP Foundation staff, get right on that, please.
Yeah, totally.
Wow. But yeah, sorry.
No problem. That was a good tangent. So a little later on, it says confirmed to be disruptive / inimical to EOI 090. So I had to look up what inimical means, and it means hostile.
Yeah.
So use hostile. Does everyone understand that?
I mean, yes and no. Like, you can use fucking fancy words, man.
I suppose. I just think of being like a just a dude that's on the SCP payroll, and then he has to go to Google in the middle of reading about this.
I mean, at that point, it's on you.
Yeah, I suppose. Then a little bit later on, it says Well, it doesn't say it specifically, but it brings up 3984-alpha twice before even telling me what the hell it is. So it's kind of bothering me. But at least the third time it showed up, it says like it's EOI-89.
Yeah.
Is who the alpha is.
Yeah, it's
I hate how I had to read it three
Also-
times to actually find it.
I like how, again, this is also, I guess this could technically count as an SCP, or like not SCP, as a grammar inquisition. But I do recall in 3895 we got SCP-3895 Prime,
Yes.
and then in this one it's EOI 089 Alpha. It's like,
It should have been Umbra.
CadaverCommander, I love your work, but can you please be a little bit more consistent on like how you're using like terminology and stuff? Because like Alpha and Prime, they're the same thing. Just stick with one.
Well, no, because alpha is like there's always alpha things in most SCPs where the SCP takes something, or is that -1 I'm thinking of?
I think that's -1. Yeah, -01
Oh,
and
okay.
stuff like that.
Right, never mind.
But like no, like because like in the previous one, like they used Prime as like for the main the main entity of SCP-3895.
I think it's
Whereas
because in that one it is a combination of all of them together, where alpha is he's just a stronger version.
No, Alpha's the Sorrow, so it should technically be the Prime because it is the progenitor of the powers.
Yes, but it's like I said, it's a stronger one, but it's not a combination of its lesser beings.
Okay.
So that difference might be different.
I like how you're defending the semantics.
Right?
This is a very weird day.
I know it's Prime. I should know things. I play Warframe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
The way it eventually describes it. But fuck, it's getting confusing because EOI-89 and SCP-3894-alpha and the Sorrow and the Bearer of Burden and the Withered King are all the same thing.
Yeah.
Like
if this entry, like again, if you were to remove all the stuff that like all the metaplot guff in the story, the designation like at the description part, it would have had like SCP-3895 has gone by many names. Here's a list of them, and then you get a bunch of like their designations, and boom, we're done, clarified. But it's also doesn't help that it's at the very end. Like a lot of those designations are at the very end of what you've just read.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at earlier. Was like I feel like this should be at the top with the description of when we first get EOI 089 or like SCP-3894. Like we should just put it up there.
Mm-hmm. And then my last note is basically my whole confusion of just what the hell GOI-89 are and all that. So here's a quote. His compared to thaumic scans of other similar entities accessible to the Foundation has led to the conclusion that SCP-3894 Alpha is conceptually and metaphysically interlinked with life on Earth to such an extent that its existence is necessary for human civilization to exist in its current state. So that means it's been around forever.
Yeah.
But at this point, like at the end of the frickin' story, I thought all of 9-4 are humans that have been turned into the ghost soldiers by the Foundation. So how would an Alpha one like be necessary for human civilization to exist?
I think
if the Alpha is just a guy named Bill or something, because it doesn't say specifically what the Alpha is.
I mean, it kind of does, but it doesn't. Like, I understand your confusion, because I think what it's trying to get at with like why it's key to human civilization is like it has markers that are similar to human, or has that humans also have and life has on Earth. I think what it's trying to get about saying is that it's basically one of our defenders against cosmic threats, like the Mother, and that's why it's the key to civilization existing, is because without it, we would have perished long ago.
Yeah.
Or without its aid and without its assistance, we would have ceased to exist long ago. it's this is where the whole adding the meta plot story into an SCP entry kind of muddies the water a bit. Yeah, I do agree. It's kind of frustrating and confusing.
Yeah, like up until that point, the whole entry has been talking about making super soldiers from humans.
Mm-hmm.
So I assumed that the alpha was like the first one they did, and
thought
he
that.
was like super powered compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
Comparatively.
But it's actually not, because this entry is actually about two things technically. It's about the entity, the Soro, which is Alpha, and it's about the program that makes lesser versions, basically, of Alpha.
Yes, but it doesn't go into
It doesn't
any.
say that. Yeah.
It doesn't go into any length at all to describe what the hell Alpha is. Because if it's something that's been around before human civilization was even a thing, is it a human? I'm assuming it's not.
Yeah.
Like, what does it look like? What is it?
Yeah, like if it's a an uber human, like if it's a superhuman thing that it's like one of the first if it is some kind of yeah, give us a description of what we got, like, that it's a withered king. Okay, so at this point, aside from my joke of that it's Keanu Reeves, it's Keanu Reeves, an elderly Keanu Reeves as John Wick with an admiralty anchor on his back, tactically using an admiralty anchor, which I would love to have an eldritch Keanu Reeves as my guardian monster.
Yeah,
it's fucking badass. We are all the beagles, or we are all the puppies to the eldritch horror. But yeah, the story again, it muddies it because it's technically it's smashing two things together when they really should be separated for more clarity.
Yep.
And maybe that's just our simple brains, and we're not on a high enough tier of thinking, and for this kind of meta plot narrative writing in within an SCP entry. But I'll stick with my traditionalist sort of narratives. Thank you. I like interesting narratives, but I'm also a dumbman. So
Dumbman.
Not Dirtman, but a dumbman.
That's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, after rereading, at this point, I started rereading things, trying to understand what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sigma 1, who is the what's fucking monitors, the Withered King, was deployed alongside GOI 89. Sorry, Sigma 1 is the entirety of all the Foundation dudes who were turned into lesser versions of the Withered King.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So they were deployed alongside GOI 89?
Oh no.
Whatever the fuck they are. So does that mean
and then Sigma 1 got wiped out in the next entry.
Yeah, so does that mean that the collection of 3894 and EOI 89 and GOI 89, that's what that is, but it's not including Sigma 1? They're not part of the collection, or are they?
No, they are part of the collection.
It's
I know I know it's confusing. Although that you just dropped a really dark thing. It's does that mean that the Withered King died alongside Sigma 01 in the conflict at Guam?
If he was deployed with them, it depends if he's staying back.
Because he did because at the end it seemed at the end of the document it says it's basically him talking. It's I will stay. I will. I gotta pull it up
your
again.
Side, yeah.
I was still yeah, exactly. It's wait, is that literally or was that spiritually? I'll always be with you.
Maybe
you've got my moral support. Just a big thumbs up from Keanu Reeves, from Eldritch Keanu Reeves. Or did he fight alongside Sigma 01 to fight the mother and lost alongside them? This is crippling if true. And again, why would that's another reason why I think this should be as a tale, because this is telling a timeline of the end times. And it's kind of weird that it's in the SCP entries because the world's still spinning. So that's yeah.
I did some searching again. I think I get it.
Okay.
GOI 89 is the group of Sigma 1 and 394 Alpha, I
Yes.
think. There's no other entities, it's just them, right?
Yeah. As far as I know.
Okay.
The one thing I could throw a monkey in your wrench.
So GOI 89 is 3894, which is the SCP that I'm reading.
Yes.
Okay.
It would be really helpful if it said that.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be really nice if it clarified that.
Where's this
I
monkey
think
wrench?
this is like, yeah. So my monkey wrench, it was like, because there was part of me when I first started reading this, I thought that the bearers of the burden and Sigma 01, I thought the bearers of the burden were like like a group or like a faction of superhuman beings that had been created like not through the SCP Foundation, but like
That's what I
that
thought too.
That's what, yeah, because I thought they were like basically like an order of people, like of warriors, like that fought along, that were like created by the Withered King, like long ago, maybe, or something. Like it's like a cult basically of warriors that were created by the Withered King, and the SCP Foundation has aligned with them to manufacture a newer set of warriors, which are now Sigma 01. But I don't know if that's true or not because it's not very clear.
Well, that makes sense though, because based on the whole, are you willing to take up the burden or whatever?
Yeah.
That makes, I'm guessing, the bearers, and then like you said, the Sigma 01 is what the Foundation has created because they are originally Foundation members that undergo this procedure. So they have the
Let me-
loyalty.
Sigma 1 are the bearers.
No. Actually,
No.
technically, the Sigma 01 are called the Foundation's anchors.
Who the fuck are the bearers then?
They're not mentioned. There's no information really about them outside of like they're a group called the Bearers. Like, but we don't know.
Well,
we haven't gotten any information. We haven't read that document yet, or
we
there
have.
isn't any information. Okay, do we?
Yeah, it's the ones that are found in the cave.
Yeah, they are. They're the ones that get recruited by the Admiral versus the Mother. They're the character creators. They're the characters in the creation menu.
Okay, then who the fuck are Sigma 1?
Sigma 1 are the Foundation's version of the Bearers. Like, basically,
So
what
the Soro. Okay, so the Soro is the Withered King dude, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So the Withered King makes allies to his team in the MMO character creator in the depths.
Yeah.
But then he also helps the Foundation make more of the same up on Earth.
However, yes, because
through Sigma 1.
Yes, because the Foundation has negotiated with him to use his powers to create soldiers like his bearers, and they're using their other thaumaturgical technologies, like the thaumaturgical ram, to like basically like beef them up but also keep them basically have them retain their loyalties
Right, they
and
are
autonomy.
different.
Yeah, and
yes, because the bearers, the GOI 89, the bearers, they are like mindless zombies to the Withered King.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are three things.
Yes.
The Withered King, the bearers, which are freaking zombies that are loyal to him, and then there's Sigma 1, which act like normal dudes but have the powers of the bearers.
Exactly.
That was easy.
It's the battle of the three armies.
God damn it.
Yeah. And this could have all been clarified. I repeat, if this had all been a tale that had been collectively concise.
No, it doesn't have to be a tale. It just has to be laid out in a way that makes sense in this story format it's doing.
Okay.
Like, it's doable. It's just the words we just said have to be in here. Like, not specifically, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like we gotta get some more clarity on certain aspects of this story that we just aren't getting.
It says, in regards to Sigma 1, they adopt a standard set of anomalous properties exhibited by GOI 89 while retaining spiritual anonymity and loyalty to the Foundation. So GOI 89 is definitely its own thing that is separate from the Withered King and Sigma 1. And only Sigma 1 died, so GOI 89 is still possibly kicking?
Okay, so the Withered King is still around.
Yeah. It depends if he went into the fight with the rest of them in the previous story.
Yeah. It's not properly said or clarified.
Okay. Anyways, that's the end of my notes.
Okay. Well, that seems like a good spot to jump on to final thoughts then.
Okay.
So, I like what this story and the previous one were covering. And what it's putting down. Like 3895, 3894, the other ones. Like it's kind of been culminating to this meta plot, this narrative that we've been getting. But personally, I feel it would be better suited being classified as an SCP tale or series of tales chronicling the imminent TK event, like keeping keeping or you could even keep the entry format a little bit with the in the SCP tale version. But it just this whole like narrative, like this whole adventure that we've been reading across multiple entries almost seems too theatrical or too cinematic, too world changing for a regular SCP entry. At least based on my casual interaction with the Foundation's writings over the last couple of years. Like it's sort of, to me, it just kind of doesn't smack against what I've been raised on with the SCP Foundation, but it kind of like it's sort of like a weird whiplash of what I've come to expect from an SCP Foundation entry. I don't want and I don't want any of this to really sound negative because it really isn't meant to be. Like I did love reading this. It was just again whiplash from the format shift of the series 3 style of like entry writing where you're combining a bunch of narrative meta plot stuff into multiple entries that you have to read along and like hope this wasn't your first SCP rodeo because you're gonna get lost. According to and like I said earlier, there's definitely a divisive grouping of opinions on this series, with some people thinking it should be an SCP. That's fine as an SCP like entries series because that's how Series 3 and SCPs tend to be, like very rabbit hole storytelling, and making the reader work for the full plot, which some folks do enjoy. Some people do enjoy that type of like internet, like kind of conspiracy theory, like reading sort of in stuff. Others think it should be more suited to the tales from the tales section of the Foundation's site and make it more kind of a serialized thing while keeping the SCP entries that they are using separate. Personally, I feel like I'm probably on Team Tales, simply because it would allow me to read everything in one go and not have to go across this massive saga that's I'm not sure where the end is. So I still partially recommend this, because it's kind of a culmination of what we've been reading. And if you've been reading these other entries like alongside us, like it's definitely worth reading it and checking it out. But I hope you're if you are planning on diving into this and getting into the narratives, I hope you're ready to work for your plot and for your for the story that you've been learning across like multiple SCP entries, because it's a bit of a climb or a bit of a dive, I guess, to be thematic. So yeah, I partially recommend, but whoo boys, there's a lot of work to do. But yeah, Mikey, the E stands for evil.
I liked that we get to learn about Special Task Force Sigma-01. I also liked that we get more information about combating the Mother, but that whole section should be with the Mother because it's information you need to know when you're dealing with that entity.
Yeah.
Like
basically, if this was a post that came out after the previous information regarding the mother should have just been added to the mother post as like a incidents report thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I also agree with everything that's being said about the fact that we should have more information on SCP-3894 Alpha and just the general SCP-3894.
Yeah. Like, just to clarify it a little bit.
Yeah. So, as it stands, there is so much data being thrown at us, and it's good to have it all combined in one place, but this is a bunch of SCP information clumped together into one, almost like the SCP entry has become an amalgamation of the mother.
I'm sorry?
Like
how the Guam monster was a whole bunch of small creatures combined into one entity. That's what this story was.
It is metaphorical.
Yes.
Surely just get that voice clip. If it wasn't copyrighted, I'd totally just get that voice clip of Taserface.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have the fun of saying it. Anyways, please continue.
Yeah. So because of that, I can only give this a partial recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Gamer, you're up.
For me, reading this was a bit of a mess, honestly. Like, maybe it's because I'm an idiot, but I had to reread most of this multiple times just to get a handle on the multiple designations given to everything. Like, everything has multiple designations, and it's confusing. But even in doing that, until you Googled it a few minutes ago, called this, I didn't know what the hell GOI meant. Like this.
Yeah, like I was doing an educated guess when I first added that to my notes. But then, like, as soon as I saw it, I was like looking at the SCP website. I was like, oh, there's a GOI directory.
Yeah. I was just doing an uneducated guess because it didn't matter. That's why I called them guys of interest.
Yeah.
But either way.
And one thing of note, the GOI format has a list of all the groups of interest, and the bearers is not listed.
I noticed that.
Oh. So that means this story isn't even real.
CadaverCommander. Why?
But either way, like you guys have both said, this feels like multiple SCPs squashed into one. It should be there's one for the EOI/GOI 89 connection and all that, which I guess there is. It's that other one. It's the character creator SCP, but it's not clearly stated that that's what that is.
Yeah.
But if you led with that and clearly stated that that's who that is and that the creations are those, cool, then we get the context. Then this story can focus on the Sigma 1 transformation and stuff.
Yeah, like I'm really surprised we didn't get a link for the Sorrow or like this entry in either the Trench SCP entry or the anchor, the Admiralty anchor, because like this should have been like as far as I can tell, the Sorrow is the power behind or the influencing power behind those two like the two parts of that those two entries.
Well,
so
it does link to the anchor.
Does it? No.
Yep.
But is there a link in the anchor document for this?
Oh, for this?
That's what I meant. Like, I feel like there should be a link to this from one of those.
Yeah, no, we would have noticed that a long time ago.
Yeah, that's what that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like I know that there's because it brings up in this one like there's a little like chart that shows like Hauling Hank and the Admiralty anchor, and then I think it also mentions another entry that we're going to be covering actually very soon. I think it's the diner.
Yep.
Which I'm very curious to see what the diner has to do with it. Like, because it's like when I was talking about the diner, it was like how it's like a major threat, and it's gotten worse in both 3895 and I think this one it talks about it like it getting worse. I was like, it's a diner.
Yep.
So I'm curious. I think that's the next one we're going to be covering, but I'm curious to see where that one is, what that was all about. But yeah,
Can I continue?
yeah. Sorry. Yes. Continue.
Yeah, basically Sigma 1 are copies of 89. I get that. However, the layout of all this muddies it all because it's very confusing. Maybe if it led with what 89 and what EOI and GOI were, and then explain that Sigma 1 is a program that turns humans into 89-like beings, they in the war, then okay. It kind of says that, but it's in such a roundabout way that I had to reread it multiple times.
Yep.
As it is, it was a bit of a confusing read. It's interesting to see the Foundation just give up on hiding shit and just fight. They don't have a choice. But I can't really recommend this one. It's just so confusing. And in the end, all it did was tell me that the Flesh Guam ate floaty ghost mages instead of soldiers with guns. And that's a lot of headache for me to read through just to get that information. Yeah. So I hate to say that because CadaverCommander, I love all your shit. All of it's awesome. But this one didn't jive well.
Yeah, like this is kind of like this has been the lead up to like all the shit we've speculated from like since we first got into like what the trench stuff and like how we've talked about like all the shit that's happening. And I hate to say this, but like the payoff wasn't that great. Or the payoff wasn't executed properly, I don't think.
I don't know.
At least the way we see it, like our opinion on it. Like yeah. I'm a little sad because I'm also a little disappointed. Yeah. I'm sorry, CadaverCommander. I love all your other stuff. We love all your other stuff. Just
Holland Hank's awesome.
Holland Hank's awesome. Joey Fucknuts is awesome.
The Night Hauler.
Night Hauler is badass. Sigma 01.
Possibly the Diner?
What?
Possibly the Diner?
Oh, we'll find out. There. Apparently the Diner is like, from what I gleaned, the Diner is another kind of like dimensional breach of the Mother.
Yeah, I think it's like a monster spawner for
her.
I
think that's what it is. Yeah, it's a monster spawner. Also, when you said like the Flesh Guam, I was like, I almost thought it was like Guar.
Ooh.
It's just a metal band Guar.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's all I got to say for that.
Okay, yeah. So to kind of quickly synopsize, or to kind of like get to brass tacks.
Synopsize. That's a word.
To get to brass tacks, to get to brass tacks. Really, like combined, like one recommendation out of the two of us, and then not really a recommendation. We're sorry. But yeah, that was this week's episode. If you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below. It's posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr. We're all on Twitter. Mikey is at the Stands for Evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W at the end because his name is very long.
Gotta be.
But the With It King.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm at Review Cultist. You can also send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spook things, cryptids. Send us your suggestions. We'll pop them on the list. We'll take a look at them, read them, discuss them, and they'll end up on the show. If you want to help support the show financially, you can go to Patreon, look up Aldente Rigamortis, and select the back tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tier with special episodes, early access, extra content. If you are for those of you that are already helping support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay, and we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, CadaverCommander, I still salute you, despite not liking this, not entirely liking this SCP. I still salute you for your endeavors. And to our listeners, thank you for listening, because otherwise it'd be like speaking into the void. And if you didn't write these stories out there and post them online and share, we really wouldn't have much of a show because there'd be nothing to talk about, for better or worse. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for Evil.
And I'm the Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Aldente Rigamortis. Sleep well.
and we're sorry.